Hello there, and welcome, friends. Frenzy here, bringing you more Kerbal Space Program mod overview. Today we're going to be taking an almost two-part look at mods, a couple of mods, and they're kind of a two-part series, or a little two-part mini-series of mod overviews, just because everything I've experienced, everything I've read, everything I've seen, they tend to rely upon each other a little bit. They go very well together. And that's going to be Engine Igniter, which we're looking at now, as well as Real Fuels, which we'll look at in a follow-up episode. So, Engine Igniter, very cool if you're into realism, if you like adding realism to your game. Because one of the things we kind of take for granted, I think, and me especially, because I light my engine and turn it off like no other. So this mod definitely adds a little bit more difficulty to your game. But one of the things we take for advantage for sometimes is there can be so many relights. You kind of saw it briefly there as I was popping in, this core stage, these core engines, they have 4 relights, and you'll see I just used up one starting there. So I can only turn this thing off and relight it 4 times, which for a core stage, probably not that big of a deal. You probably only do a couple relights, maybe on your core stage, depending how you build your rockets. But, you'll see this comes into play a lot more when you get to those second stages, when you have maybe a lander. So it can make a huge difference. And what I'm going to kind of do is just kind of go through and show you how this can come into play a little bit. So we're just getting into orbit for the most part. You'll see I'm just kind of burning through some of my relights here. So I had 3, now I'm down to 2. So they go pretty quickly. Not surprisingly. The core stage, again, doesn't really matter too much, but it can make a difference. They're based on electric charge, so depending on how much electric charge each engine has, it depends on how many relights you can do. And you'll see here, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and check. So we have 2 left, so I'm just going to burn these out. So I now have no ignitions left, but you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I cannot start my engine, even though I have fuel, as you can see right there. So that's an issue, obviously. So you have to be considering, when you're planning a mission, am I going to need to, this is going to be, ascent trajectory that I need to, relight the engine multiple times, that could be a factor. I think it comes more into play. You'll see here this stage, second stage, not surprisingly, has 24 ignitions that I can do, which is pretty helpful, because this is something you might take to the moon, for example, where you have to, burn, use an ignition, burning for the moon, making adjustments for the moon, like getting in orbit with the moon, or having an encounter with the moon as well, getting into orbit with the moon. Landing, obviously, you can use many ignitions, so that can be an issue, particularly if you're like me and you just kind of like to blow through ignitions. You really don't even think about it. You start and stop it. So it does kind of add like a strategic element to the game, which is really cool, because it's a very simple mod. It's pretty straightforward, but it adds an incredible amount of depth. Requires a lot of foresight, a lot of planning, particularly if you go interplanetary, making course corrections, or making adjustments, getting into, alignment or counter with that planet. So that can take some time and some foresight as well. And I'm just kind of playing around here. I wish I had shown it a little bit better. One of the things too that can do is it can make monopropellant significantly more useful. Obviously, because monopropellant is essentially just gas being released, and the difference in mass, the mass leaving the vehicle is propelling it forward. So it actually doesn't have any kind of ignition to speak of, which is really nice. And I wish I had shown that a little bit better. But we're just going to go ahead and kind of come in for a landing here and kind of illustrate how it can engine ignition kind of affect your gameplay. And unfortunately not much here because I have a lot of relights, but as you'll see, I burned through quite a few engine ignitions, and so that takes, again, a lot of planning, a lot of thought about, what specifically are you doing with your engine ignitions, when you're coming in for a landing. You have to really consider that, and I'm going to come in for a very hard landing here. Thankfully, these SpaceX parts are pretty durable, for my sake. But hopefully you've enjoyed. Please feel free to subscribe. Go ahead and give a thumbs up if you've enjoyed. I really appreciate that. Any comments for mods you would like to see? Again, I would love to see what you guys have to say. And we're going to be following up with Real Fuels right after this. So hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.